All right, we'll try this for the third time. My chance to model the thought process of analyzing a video clip from the documentary film. One thing to note is that Girl Rising, each chapter is a part of a whole, and so there's a continued thread through the entire documentary film. Um, and that's important to note. The purpose of the film by Rich Robbins is to raise awareness, to inspire action, and to build a sense of camaraderie and fellow feeling and pathos with the young women that are recorded. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently this time and skip through. So this will be about 5 to 10 minutes or so in total. Welcome to Mr. Eric's YouTube channel. So the film documentary starts off with captions, and that is unique to the YouTube setting. But one of the things that you notice when you watch each chapter is that they start off with this symbolic, metaphorical green field in some undetermined place, with a series of young actors wearing school uniform and other outfits that are associated with school. And the director starts off with a series of props and special effects placed in the scene, which is an example of the mise en scene, to show that the young women in this green field, which is likely to represent the Western, affluent, wealthy world, are directly connected with the young women in the developing and less affluent world. So the green field is designed to build a sense of an appeal to logos with statistics and captions on the mise en scene. It shifts gradually to the stories of the young women, and with this soft focus on extreme close-ups, the water, the rain, the writing, the young woman in profile. And this is a direct shift to tell a story of a real human being in Nepal, Suna. And it's directly changing to make an appeal to pathos. We want to feel the emotional connection with this young woman. This part of the story is interestingly told with the young woman as a young adult portraying herself, with a poet from Nepal writing and narrating her story. On top of that, we've got these lovely cinematic scenes of life in Nepal from this woman as a young adult. And we've got this tracking shot with an extreme close-up on her that gives a sense of freedom, that now life is better for her, that she can travel through Nepal, that she can live a normal life. But all at the same time, there's this second story taking place, which is a flashback to a young child acting as her in her past in these different locations, which are the sets that the filmmaker chose to film this footage on in Nepal. Not in a green field in England or America anymore. We're on set in Nepal. And the extreme close-ups shift to telling the narrative of Suma's childhood in Nepal. I'm going to pause here to skip ahead so we can see another segment of this. So watch out and try to tell where I am sitting around the school. All right, our film continues on with a bit of a shift. The director has now chosen a new location, a new set, and has picked some music that is allegedly composed by Suma as a young woman, as a young adult, that connects with her creative and internal mental life that she had as a child, and now as a young woman, having overcome the challenges of her childhood as a indentured servant, as a slave, essentially, in Nepal. We've got the directors filming both women, both actors together, the young adult and the child. And the film shifts, and the pacing and the speed of the frame goes away from those extreme close-ups to this fast-moving tracking shot through the city that this young woman lives in Nepal. it's continuing to tell her story of how education has taken over her life as a social worker was involved in her case. And this is starting to continue this appeal to pathos, that we're starting to hear her life story, and the film director is doing that through that non-linear, that jumping narrative from place to place and time to time. All right, here's our final jump. And now, all of a sudden, the film director has moved away from having an extreme close-up on one young woman to having these group shots. Filmmakers will call them a two-shot or a four-shot, and changing the camera angles to show that this young woman has a little bit more power and control over her life now that she's together with another group of young women who've received an education and are fighting back against this practice of servant child labor in Nepal. The filmmaker is making continuity with the story by continuing the song as a motif of the hope and the courage and the bravery that these young women have. The documentary maker then continues this real cinematic approach of having this long, wide shot of the landscape of Nepal with all the bicycles biking past in formation to show that these young women with education now are working together and are achieving great things of educating the people of Nepal about the downside of slavery and child labor. This lets the filmmaker end the story of this young woman with this rather poignant and touching moment where they're reminding the audience that this is a real woman. It's not a movie, it's not a made-up story. We've got these lovely extreme close-ups coming back, but with the narrator from the start of the chapter taking over. We see the mise-en-scene, the props that are made to make the film more cinematic, but also to keep that connection with a real human being, a real young woman from Nepal. Now we come back at the end of the chapter to our green fields, somewhere in some affluent Western country, good farmland, green spaces. And the director uses the props of these placards to continue to make that connection to the appeal to logos in the viewer. The statistics of young women and the violence and the suffering and the lack of education opportunities. That finishes the chapter, and it makes a connection with the film as a whole. So I hope this finally works and that I can get this video uploaded for you to watch. And thank you for watching.